What's up, guys? It's your boy Jay coming at you with another video. Today I want to talk about the Last of Us No Return expansion that just came out and the No Return Roguelike expansion mode that just came out. But I have played it for a couple hours and I do have these few things to say. First of all, going into it, I just wanted to say my expectations for this mode were low. Based on some IGN clips that I saw, it didn't look too deep, or it didn't look like it had too much replay value. But surprisingly, this is really fun, and I think I could spend a lot of my hours in this game mode trying to get to the final boss. And before we get into my first impressions, I just want to go into like my thought process behind what I'm about to say. And over the last few years, gaming wise, I've had this transition from loving games for their story and their narrative and how immersed I could be in this story that they're telling and how much I'll care about these characters and what happens to them and how the story ends. I went from really loving games like that to nowadays I feel like gameplay is king. Like, for a lot of games, like, I kind of don't really care about their story anymore. I don't know if it's just because these new AAA games have really worn out generic stories with repeated tropes, or the writing is just bad, but I don't know. I feel like gameplay over everything for me right now. I'm playing Final Fantasy 16 right now, and that is a movie. Like, I damn near fall asleep playing that game because I play for like 15 seconds and I have to watch a 3-minute cutscene, and I'm really not enjoying that as of now. And it's odd because, oddly enough, it was Nintendo that actually made me realize that gameplay is way more important than the story. And now I really just don't like playing those movie games. They really annoy me now. I really wanted to say that just because The Last of Us is a very well-paced game story-wise. So I never really feel like I'm stuck watching a movie, but I do get really immersed in the game to this day, and I find that it's just so intense. That game literally gives me so much anxiety and my heart races, whether it's a cutscene or I'm playing the game. Just needless to say, the combat in this game is really enjoyable, and it's just as tense as I remember it. Like 4 years ago that I first played it? That thing had me freaking sweating after clearing each level. That game had me sweating after each level, and that just really goes to show how heavy-handed the gameplay in this game actually is, and how much this game's gameplay is so well made and perfectly paced. And I was worried that I had been spoiled with God of War Valhalla, because that's a roguelike with a light story element. Like, it's not super cutscene-y, but it did have some story beats that kind of kept me hooked into it, because obviously, we all care about Kratos and his fate as the God of War, or now, spoiler alert, if you haven't played God of War Valhalla, the God of Hope. And I was worried that not playing with a story like this, not hearing something else about Joel or Ellie, that the game mode wouldn't capture me the way that Valhalla did. But to be honest, after I finished the story mode with Valhalla, I haven't touched it since. I haven't even gone into the end game or try to beat the hardest boss or anything. But this roguelike, it has no story at all, and no tense plot points that can, pull me in closer and me just want to see what happens next. There's nothing like that. It still has me having to catch my breath after every encounter, just because of how intense the gameplay is and how brutal it is. It's super engaging, and it went deeper into the roguelike mechanics than I was expecting. There's a good amount of variety that can happen during each run, which is awesome. So I was worried that a lot of the runs would feel the same, because it's just loot, shoot, and hide. That's what I thought that the Last of Us gameplay would be for this roguelike. But they actually did do a good job mixing it up between the different game modes and the different systems, with the gambits and the dead drops, and picking a new loadout or upgrading in the skill trees between each round. I think they did a really good job. with mixing up each run that way. Yeah, it started to finally click for me last night when I was playing. I think I unlocked the last game mode, and I realized a good strategy that'll probably take me further in my run than I ever have before. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. I have not completed a single run in this game, either because I suck or the game is just that brutal and difficult, and maybe it's a universal thing. I haven't really looked at anybody else's opinion on it, but I personally find it really hard. I play on the hard difficulty, and I refuse to do anything else because I'm stubborn, and I actually want to see myself get better and actually beat it on the difficulty I started on. So I'm not changing from hard no matter how long it takes me to get through a run. But I'm also having fun trying out the different play styles and strategies of each character, so that could kind of be slowing me down a little bit too. And about the characters, to be honest, they don't seem that different from each other. They of course have their own like different loadout at the start and like a different perk tree in the beginning, but I think you could pretty much buy any perk tree or do certain encounters that will give you a certain perk tree that you want. So it's not really that different, but I haven't spent enough time with either of the characters to really tell how different they are. I know some of them can't dodge and most of them can, which is probably a very big difference that I haven't played enough to really experience. But so far, this is really solid. This is a really solid game mode, and it's super fun, which is the most important to me. And yeah, so that's pretty much my consensus of it. One last thing I like to say is you can tell that there are definitely traces of the canceled multiplayer factions mode in this new game mode's like DNA, and you could just tell from like the game modes and the menus and the way they display new information and stuff. It feels like a multiplayer live service, but it's not. And you could tell that it's definitely some pieces of that they're using in here, and it makes me sad because this roguelite mode is really polished and the potential for factions could have been through the roof, but for some reason they didn't think it would, garner enough attention to make a return on investment, or whatever their reason was for canceling it. They could have went far with factions for real, and even if they just tacked it on, just reuse some of the story levels and contained it into one area and then just let us run around in a multiplayer lobby killing each other, I think we would have went far. Like, that's literally all we wanted, but they try to set their scope too big, and I guess that backfired on them. But even today, like, if they wanted to make it, I think it would go crazy. Like, it'd be super popular. The Last of Us gameplay is super unique, and I think maybe we should make an open letter to Naughty Dog to try to at least get them to tack it on. Like, at least do some lazy shit and give us some way to play multiplayer. At least that'd be the least that they could do. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my first impressions of the game. If you liked the video, just leave a like. If you didn't, then I guess you didn't, and you can leave a dislike. And consider subscribing if you haven't already. And that's it. Peace.